Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. This is for the week of May 16th, 2024. The current character challenge is Injustice 2 Superman.
Woohoo!
It's a one-week repeat. The required characters are Harley Quinn, Solomon Grundy, and Doomsday, bronze, and silver, respectively. If you're looking at the lowest tier, you can get each of them. His passive is Kryptonian Fortitude, which is every time Superman tags in, he takes no damage from the first special received, and he gets a bonus 5% damage and 5% health per promotion. He starts with 1,300 attack and 1,500 health as his base stats. He was last available on the 12th of March, 2020, so that is more than 4 years ago.
Right. So when we say a repeat, it is a repeat, but not a repeat that a lot of people have seen.
Yeah, for a lot of people, for anybody, who started playing in the last 4 years... Yeah. This is your first time getting access to him.
So among the golds, he's got the highest combined stats and he's got the highest health. And when you take into account his passive, so that means if he's Elite 7, he's got a 35% boost damage, 35% boost health. He's effectively base stats 1,755 attack and 2,025 health. Mm-hmm. And if you bring him up to Elite 10, those numbers jump up to 1950 attack and 2250 health.
Yeah, and I guess the only way that it doesn't count for that is if you're looking at gear that boost your attack and health. Right. Because the gear applies on the base stats, not on like the passive boosted stats.
Right. So, yeah, that by itself would be enough of a passive, but he's got that second part, or technically the first part. So no damage from the first special that he receives. It's actually controllable. So for those of you who haven't had an Injustice 2 Superman play with, you can watch what we're doing here. But if you don't block, it will trigger when the opponent does a special. But if you do block, you can save your shield for later, but you'll take blocked damage. Mm-hmm. And the interesting in between is, so if you block and then let go during the opponent's special, you will take blocked damage and then you will lose the shield.
Mm-hmm. Which actually could be a... Tantu Totem strategy, right? Of taking like one hit of damage unblocked.
Right.
And then, or one blocked and then making them do very little of their special damage to you.
Right.
But still not get their power back.
And on the flip side too, even if you're not doing it intentionally, if you make a mistake, if you decide to block and realize you shouldn't, you can let go of the block to avoid the effects from the opponent's special that might be tied into the last hit, like
stun, damage over time, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not the worst thing. The other thing you should know is, even though it says it's every time he tags in, the shield is there even if he's in first slot, even if he hasn't tagged in, and it renews after each tag in. So the other part that you don't see, like, because we like to talk about characters not just from the obvious stuff like the stats and the passives, is that his 3-hit special 2, the number of hits breaks down to 25, 25, and 50% damage. And the beauty of it is there is separation between all 3 hits, which means none of the hits are wasted. If any of the hits knock out an opponent, the next hit will engage with the next opponent.
Yeah.
So if they are invulnerable, then that's one thing. But if they're not invulnerable, they tag in, you could potentially hit all 3 opponents. If you knock out the opponents one at a time with the amount of damage you're doing with each hit, you can knock them all out. This is great. So much better than any of the newer challenge characters that can only knock them out on the last hit. Mm-hmm. And he might be the only character, actually, that's got that
property.
Where the hits are all separated, that none of them are wasted.
Yeah.
Except against invulnerabilities and the end of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I should also point out, and I don't point this out often enough, it is the easiest swipe mini game. So they're 10% increments instead of 5%, and there's lots of time to be able to swipe 10 times to get the full 200% for the damage. So you're getting full value for special 2. And it only requires 1 mini game, even though there's 3 significant hits. You see in a lot of other characters where, like Raven, I'm looking at you, her special 1 requires you to do swipe game twice. Mm-hmm. And because she's on a team, you can see how much more difficult it is, where the time, I guess the time might be about the same, but because each swipe is only 5%, it's much harder to get the full 200%. And that's just on special 1. Yeah. For the effort that you're doing, for the amount of damage you're doing, it doesn't seem like it's worth it. Mm-hmm. So he's great. The one drawback on a special 2 is that if the opponent blocks it, then it becomes a 2-hit special 2. And so I think next week we were planning on talking a bit more about our S tier. And I think Injustice 2 Superman is clearly, for most people, an easy choice for S tier, because as an individual card that doesn't need any supports, he's already pretty great. But there's going to be lots of other people in the S tier that it's because of what they contribute to the team.
Yeah.
And what Injustice 2 Superman contributes to the team, though, even though he may not be helping the other members, boy, he's pretty spectacular on his own. Yeah.
So there we go.
Sorry. One other thing, too. These are the details that matter. His swipe combo doesn't seem that fast, but there's a really good rhythm to it. So it's really easy. You don't really chain it, but it's really easy if the opponent doesn't have power to just keep on doing swipe combos over and over. And you should be seeing an example of that in one of these fights. Sorry.
Yeah. So here's normally where we talk about the cycle. There's no real cycle right now. We don't know, right? We're 3 weeks into uncharted territory.
Right.
Importantly, there used to be 23 challenge characters that hadn't been available for years. Now there are only 21. And so we are looking for that number to reach 0, right? That's sort of 2 things that I would like to see is for all the characters to come back. And then I would also like to see some sort of pattern emerge again after that with the whole sort of host of characters.
I think it's worth pointing out that there's some characters that we've been keeping track since 2018. I've got notes from that. And there's some characters that haven't been in the challenge, available as a challenge, since before that. So there's sometime before 2018 or 2017. So even before we were missing anybody, there was sort of short runs of patterns, and then they would break off, and then there would be repeats, and then there would be new stuff, and it would just be a whole mess. Yeah,
so there we go. This week's multiplayer reward is the Black Diamond, which becomes the Heart of Darkness, and when it's maxed out, it gives you a 30% damage boost on Special 2. Any special attack applies 6% damage over time, which also drains 12% enemy power. You gain 30% power generation increased, and the Evolved ability, which is if opponents tag out, they receive damage equal to 20% of equipped characters' damage. This one was last available on the 12th of October 2023. We were 177 weeks in a row of a consistent pattern for multiplayer rewards. That's a 31 reward sequence that we've done 5 full times. And nothing is missing from that. We expect next week to be Batman Ninja Helmet for the multiplayer rewards.
Right. So not every legendary 4.5-star gear has to be the best.
Yeah, they can't all be Tentu Totem or Master's Death card.
But this is one of those that is, so it's not Tentu Totem or Master's Death card, but it is definitely a level above the 3.5-star gears.
Yeah, it's maybe just under Astro Harness. It's like the 4th best, or maybe not exactly 4th best, but it's up there.
It's, I guess, if you can look at the legendary S tier, and then this is the tier right below that, right?
Yeah.
So the power generation boost doesn't get any better than this. I think 30% is as high as it gets. It's as high as the League of Assassin's Knives. It is super helpful against a power dampening team. The damage boost on Special 2 is also pretty good. The damage over time and the tag out damage are nice bonuses, but they're sort of the weaker parts of the passive. We don't run damage over time teams enough, and if the fights are going right, there's not much tagging out by the opponents unless you count getting knocked out, but that doesn't actually count towards this passive, right? We like using this gear on our special specialists, even if they don't do damage over time, because the power generation boost and Special 2 damage boost are more than enough to justify that gear slot. And it's great as a third piece, right? You mentioned Tentu Totem, Master's Death card, so they're the first 2 pieces. This makes an excellent third piece on your special specialist, so you get that second bar really quickly, even against a power dampening team.
So there we go. Moving on to the store, we have the Arkham Knight Challenge Pack for 200,000 power credits. It gives you that 6.16% chance instead of the regular 2.86% chance of getting Arkham Knight. And we've done the math. It is not worth it unless you're selling back basically every other character. I think if you want the Arkham Knight and one other character and that's it, and everybody else you're selling back, then it makes sense to buy this one. But in all other cases, if you're keeping other ones, it doesn't make any sense.
So the one thing I want to point out about this, if Arkham Knight is the next challenge, what they've done is they're inserting, this is the second time they're inserting one of the missing challenge characters.
Yeah.
Without interrupting the previous cycle.
Which is great news, right? That's ideal, because that would give us the best indication that they're just adding them, and then the cycle is continuing as expected.
Right.
We also have Blackest Night Pack 1 for $24.99 Canadian. That's the currency that we have access to on our device, so that's the one that we're giving you.
That's the only currency that matters.
Yep. And that contains Blackest Night Martian Manhunter, Blackest Night Hawkgirl, and Blackest Night Batman. We also have the Character Bundle Rebirth Team in for its second week. And then a bunch of other packs that have been around for a while. Moving on, Phantom Zone has 1 week left. Fight 62 is still broken. Last weekend's breakthrough for Golds was Zatanna, Flash, and Solomon Grundy. This coming weekend's is probably Raven, Superman, and Arkham Knight the Arkham Knight. I say that because there's one Arkham Knight, right?
Yes.
But technically it's just the Arkham Knight. There's also a link in the description to a thread in the Injustice Mobile subreddit from Devlin16 with a complete breakthrough cycle that you can check out for yourself if you'd like. This is sort of the wrapping up portion. This is normally where we talk about any changes to the glitches, which for a long time has not happened. And on the first week of every month is where we go through sort of our complete discussion of all the extra information that we want to share about current glitches. That would be most recently the one on the 2nd of this month. Importantly, we have tested and confirmed that the challenge reset glitch is working on Injustice to Superman, as well as the Phantom Zone reset. And just remember, if you're going to reset either of them, that you're resetting progress on both. So make sure that that's something you are willing to do, especially if you're trying to get Injustice to Superman for the first time in years. You don't want to reset your progress on that before you've finished it up.
Right.
Yeah. And that does it for this week. So to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
And that would be Michael Devries, Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi127, Nora Klimek, and Paolo-Cesar-Pablo-Juan, who are supporting us on the credited level, and 5x5, who's supporting us on the gratitude level.
So there we go. Thank you so much for your support. And thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time. Komoda.